Good afternoon, everybody. It's a beautiful March 25th kind of afternoon here, and I am with Shelia Edwards, who is a candidate for Public Service Commission District 5, which is our district up here in Northwest and West Georgia. So, Sheila, how are you doing today? I know we were talking a little bit before about the pollen, so I won't.
Yeah,
I'll let you explain that. But how
listen,
are you doing?
I'm fine, but the thing about it is everybody's affected by this pollen. I mean, it's
Yeah,
in your hair, it's in your clothes, your skin, and it's even in your mouth. I'm like, I taste it.
yeah. This
And
part of
it's
this part of the world is bad about we got like
yeah,
all kinds of pollen coming at us, this time of year especially. So
yeah. It seemed
I
like
feel you, believe me.
they would invent something that corrects this, but it just gets worse and worse each year. And
Yeah.
I saw a cloud of pollen blowing down the road the other day, and I was like, wow.
Hmm.
It's almost like a sci-fi movie. But hopefully we'll get a good rain at some point and wash some of it away. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm suffering like everybody else. But thank you so much for your invitation to come and speak with you and share my thoughts and ideas about the Public Service Commission and why I'm running. So
No problem. Thank you for taking time out to do that. So, what I
yeah.
typically do on these interviews at the start, I just kind of turn it over to you. You can tell us a little bit about your background, whatever you think is relevant, your family, your
Hmm.
professional career, your career. And I know you've run for office before, that sort of thing. So, anything you think is relevant, I'll give the screen over to you, and you can have at it.
Okay, well, as you said earlier, I'm Sheila Edwards, and I'm running for the Public Service Commission. I'm running to be that third vote that we need in order to change the trajectory of what's happening with the Public Service Commission. You know, the Public Service Commission used to be a commission that understood its mandate, which was to service the public, but
Right.
somehow it's turned itself into the rubber stamp for Georgia Power. And
Right.
I'm running to change that to be the third vote to join Peter Hubbard and Alicia Johnson to help change the situation that's occurring now. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago in Clayton County where the Georgia Power sponsored the gala, and the spokesperson said, "Oh, we're going to be giving you a rebate this summer of $100." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Man, you've already taken about 1,000 from us.
Right.
$100 means nothing." Um,
Right.
I'm running because I want to make sure that the rates are fair for Georgians, that we're dealing with clean energy, and that we're really understanding this onslaught of data centers in our communities. As you may be aware, I ran in 2022.
Right.
I ran in a three-person race for the Public Service Commission and won the Democratic primary without a runoff. And that's not a normal feat in Georgia. Normally, when you have more than two people in a race, you go into a runoff. But I was
Right.
able to do that. I later found out that I won every district within the state, which said a couple things to me that I have name recognition and that people gravitated to my message. And my
Mhm.
message is about our pocketbooks, making sure that we're protecting our pocketbooks. I think about, one of the reasons why I got into the race in 2022 is because I opened up a Georgia Power bill and saw a bill for $500 and some change. And I'm like, wait a second, there's no way me living alone, nobody else here in my house can generate a $500 bill in a month. And I called Georgia Power up and they gave me every excuse under the sun. Maybe you got a leak somewhere, in your house that's, air's getting in, the air's getting out, all of these other things. I'm like, no, I'm in a fairly new house and everything's sealed up, so there's no leaks. Well, they gave me some other excuses and no resolution, no resolve to what was going on. There was no problem on their end. All the problems were on my end. And it was at that point that I decided I was going to run for the Public Service Commission. Because if this is a bill that I'm getting as a person living alone, I can't even imagine the bills that families are getting, a family of four, or
Mm.
seniors, or veterans, or anybody else is getting that is just off the charts. And from that time period, 2022 to the present, they've also, gone in and done several rate increases. So the matter just keeps going up and up and up with no resolve no relief for the ratepayers of Georgia. And as you've seen from various public service commission meetings, you have people across the state bringing their concerns and their issues to the PSC and um, pleading in vain for them to give some relief. And none
Right.
has come forward. But I believe that with the third vote um, for that for the Public Service Commission, that we'll be able to change the way things are done and again put the protection back in the Service Commission, Public Service Commission that's supposed to be there for the consumers. My background, I I've got a degree in journalism and I'm presently in school at Georgia State working on my master's after a number of years. I worked in corporate America for a half a dozen years. I worked in government on a local, state, and federal level. So a lot of people want to know what my background is and what allowed me to be able to run for this position is because I understand government. And I was David Scott's first district director when he went to Congress. I worked with at least two county governments in different capacities. I worked with the city of Atlanta on a number of projects, including their Charter Review Commission, where we looked at all elements of their government to see how we can change that and make it, more user-friendly and better
Mhm.
serving the community.
Mhm.
One of the things I wanted to note is that I worked, God, a few years ago for Lockheed at Kennedy Space Center. So I
Mhm.
worked with engineers and NASA and quality and safety and all of these different people garnering understanding and experience in terms of what it took to launch the space shuttle. I went to work there right after Challenger blew up, and we were tasked with creating documentation to, get back to launch, return to flight. And
Right.
so, understanding the technical side of things, I think um, that experience helped me shape my technical understanding and being able to jump into the Public Service Commission and look at a lot of the things that are going on and be able to understand it without there being any struggle or sense that I don't have the background for it. Um, I've worked in my community on a number of fronts and you know, when things are going on in my community, I'm proud that people will call and say, "Hey, Sheila, can you help us with this?" or "Can you do this?" or whatever. I remember there was a waste station trying to make itself our new neighbor. I live near the Chattahoochee, maybe about a mile away, and they were illegally taking waste. And the county was getting ready to approve them as a permanent waste taker. And I'm like, no, this
Mhm.
can't be happening, And everyone told me, well, it's a done deal. And I said, no, it's not, because we get a say. We're the community. We get a say. It doesn't just, happen by
Right.
osmosis. We get to weigh in on that. And I went to the commission meeting the very next week, and I was the sole person down there. And luckily, the applicant pulled his application because that was one of the complaints that they hadn't come and talked to our community.
Right.
And once they did that, I just went to work. And I've got a small little communications business. I started printing off newsletters and paperwork and went door to door, um, talking with my neighbors and letting them know that we needed to mobilize, come together, and make sure that this situation doesn't become our permanent neighbor that brings in 50 tons of waste each year. And
Yeah.
I went down there as a sole person that particular week, and by the time we got to where the commission was voting, I had about 80 or 90 people with me. And that was the power of communications. That was the power of making people aware of what was happening, because a lot of these companies rely on us being unaware and rely
Right.
on us being ostriches with our heads in the sand. Excuse me for a second.
Right. Yeah, sure.
But everybody came to me afterwards and they were like, "How did you know to do this?" And I'm like, well, I worked in government on a local, state, and federal level. I
Mhm.
know you can't just make these things happen in people's communities without there having some say so. I worked on constituent services. I worked, on the federal side, making sure people got their Social Security, got their, veterans support. all of these different things. So I know how to navigate these various fronts. And I contacted Chattahoochee River Keepers,
Mhm.
contacted the Charlie Brown Airport because waste generates birds, and we were like less than a mile away from Charlie Brown's airport. I contacted my state and federal folks, and even though they didn't have direct oversight over it, I was able to get them to write letters on our behalf saying our constituents are impacted by this, and I want you to take a look at this matter. So, there's different ways to impact, those types of situations, and I utilize every resource in order to do it. So, um, and that's what I will bring to the Public Service Commission. I think someone asked me about marginalized communities just recently, and I believe that we need to take a closer look at the communities that are negatively impacted by a lot of the decisions that are being made, and make sure that people are aware, that they understand what's going on, and that we're giving every consideration to that situation. So, again, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and go to work for the people of Georgia. And I asked them to give me the same trust that they gave me in 2022, that I will deliver for them, that I will protect their pocketbooks, and that I will make sure that the service that Public Service Commission is supposed to deliver is delivered. Um, and so I don't know if that took care of everything that you wanted to know, but
Well,
that's kind
that's
of
quite a bit. Yeah,
listen.
I've been checking all things as you go. You cover quite a bit. There is one thing I
Yeah,
wanted to just briefly go back. You mentioned that of course, you ran and won in 2022, but
yeah,
then explain just if you can a little bit about what happened after that. You won the primary. You were our party's nominee, and then it
yeah,
all came sort of to a halt. What happened
yeah.
with that?
Yeah, I was elated in May of 2022 when I won the
Mhm.
the Democratic nomination, and Patty Durant and I were going
Right,
to join forces to go around the state um, campaigning for the Public Service Commission, and join Stacey Abrams and the rest of the ticket at the time, to
right,
make sure that our messages were being heard and understood. And I think it was about August of 2022 when a legal challenge that the NAACP had um had had issued, or sought,
hmm,
was finally heard by the courts. And the NAACP was concerned about how the Public Service Commission was elected. But so
right,
even though we have five districts around the state that represents different portions of the state, everybody in the state gets to vote on those five versus
right.
just the people within that district. And I think that the NAACP was trying to change that situation so that it's a district vote versus a statewide vote.
Right.
And they initially sided with the NAACP, which would have been good for us. But then they
Yeah.
turned around and what the other side challenged it. And so it was
Hmm.
just like a ping pong ball. It just went from one court to the other, and just based on whatever court you ended up in is whatever, decision was made. And
Right.
I think maybe mid-August, the Secretary of State decided that, we needed to be removed from the ballot because they didn't know where the legal challenge would end up. And if they had us on the ballots in November, and the challenge had, been won to keep the seats as the voting as it is or was,
Right.
then we would be on there. And I mean, it was just a very unfortunate situation. And and I'm a big proponent and supporter of the NAACP, but I was like, could you the challenge could have come like the
A
next year or
little
something.
later.
I know,
Right.
I know. Could it have
Right.
happened a few months later or something? But
Right.
we respected the process. And I think that the other disappointing part was that they took our races off the ballot and they left the
Yeah.
Republicans in place. And
I didn't know
for
that they
me,
could do that.
I
I
didn't
was
know. Yeah, I
that
didn't know
that
it.
always struck me as strange. I didn't know we could just remove something from the ballot. That was weird to me. I didn't know if they
Trust
ever offered an explanation for that or what, you
that
know.
the Secretary of State can just decide whatever. It was what I
Hmm.
was told. And my thing, and the thing that Patty both of us referenced during the time was, you've got voters who have voted for us. So now you're invalidating their vote. You're not letting
Right.
their vote go until November.
Right.
Um, and that was, like I said, an unfortunate situation. And we looked for other people besides ourselves, our voices to raise an issue about it. And it really wasn't enough um, noise behind it. And,
Yeah.
I worked with John Lewis when he was living and, became one of his mentors, or he was my mentor, and I was one of his mentees, and he always talked about good trouble,
Right.
generating good trouble. And I was looking for somebody to generate good trouble around this challenge, and it just never
Hmm.
came. And Patty and I kind of talked about it until we were blue in the face. And it was
Yeah.
like every time someone saw us coming, they knew we were going to be talking about the PSC and what had happened. But,
Right.
we went on. And I guess this past November, we're able to get Peter and Alicia elected.
Right. Right.
And I
Well,
think,
speak.
not just because they were running, but again, the same issues that we talked about in 2022, the pocketbook issues. And it's
Yeah.
not changed. And even now with this situation with the gas and, all these other things that are putting pressure points on families and seniors and veterans and people like myself, um, where we have to figure out, what can we actually do with the resources that we have. We can't take care of it
Right.
all. And
Right.
when you have a utility like Georgia Power, which is $1 billion company,
Hmm.
continuously asking for more rate increases, they don't need another dollar from us.
Right.
They have more than enough money. And what's really painful is listening to their quarterly reports, their earning reports come out each quarter, and this is like, it's like chewing glass because they're making
Hmm.
so much money that they don't need to turn around and continuously put these things on us. Vogel, they
Right.
want to put on us. Data centers, they want to put on us. Any and everything that they do, they want to put on the back of ratepayers. And at some
Right.
point, they need to make these things pay for themselves. Data centers,
Right.
they want to come into our community, pay for yourself. You cannot turn around and make us responsible for uh, private companies. They talk about, people, kicking people off of welfare. Well, kick some of these companies off of the corporate welfare line because that's where they
Hmm.
are. They are counting
I think. Okay. There you go. You temporarily lost your
on their
picture.
yes.
Go ahead.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
want to pay for their bills. Pay for it
Right.
yourself. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And for a second there, you kind of froze up. Yep. Oh, we lost Sheila. I will try and get her back real fast. Hang on just a second. Sometimes this happens. There you go. There you go.
Um,
Yeah, I can hear you. There you are. There you are. We blinked out just for a second. That's fine.
yeah.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
mean,
So
that's kind of where I am with all of this. And
right.
I'm not just looking at this from a, hey, I want to be an elected official. I'm looking at this from a consumer perspective because I'm one of
Right.
those consumers. And
Right.
I'm a senior. And so, these things impact me just as much as they impact the next person. So,
Right. And we're all feeling it right now. But
oh
now
yeah.
you've mentioned that this is for the majority.
Hmm.
So let's say you win the primary, it'll be you and Peter running. Peter's got to run again because of this situation that you were talking about, getting everything
Yep.
lined back up right again. So you and he will be running. What do you've run statewide before? You've done this before. What do you
Hmm.
think the secret is, or what's a successful plan for you and Peter and the PSC candidates to do a statewide campaign and win again like we did last year?
Yeah. Well, my plan is to take my message to the the citizens of Georgia. And
Mhm.
I think my message resonates because people are concerned about their pocketbooks.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is, when we had the election for president a few years ago, a lot of people got suckered into, thinking that, the person that they elected was going to take care of their issues. That person doesn't care
Right.
about our issues. And it's unfortunate that you have to, be in the middle of it to understand that there was some mistakes made in putting this person in the White House because he could care less. And you got a war that he started without authorization from Congress.
Mhm.
And he's asking for $2 billion for the war, but here we have the the country shut down,
Right,
and TSA can't get paid, and all of these other vital entities can't get paid, but we should put $2 billion over here for a war that we shouldn't even be in. It
right.
makes no sense. But folks can say, "Oh, that's over there," but guess what? The ill effects of it comes knocking on our doors.
Hmm.
I want to fill up my car and not really paying attention to the war. And I normally would take about $35 to fill up my car, and the thing kept going. I'm like, wait a second,
Yeah,
what's happening? And I complained to my daughter. She's like, "Are you not paying attention? It's the war." And I'm like,
right.
"Okay, yeah, okay." And so yeah, I got to go get my gas from Costco now. I've saved a couple of dollars, but
Yeah, you and me
but
both, right?
yeah, but everything is impacted, and so we don't live on an island. We can't just say, "Oh, I'm here in my own little house and I'm good and whatever." Everything that happens impacts us in one way or the other, or it impacts people that we love and we care about, or other people. I'm a big proponent of being an advocate for other people. And, I can take my ball and go and do whatever, but I do worry about the seniors. I do worry about the veterans. I do worry about marginalized communities. I do care what happens to them. And so, as long as I've got breath in my body, advocacy will be a part of the things that I do, whether I win office or not. That is just who I am, and that's what I've been doing for the last couple of decades. I didn't just wake up yesterday and said, okay, I want to run for PSC. I've been, you know, in my community, working in my community, being a part of the solution, helping to make sure that people's quality of lives were at the best that it could be. And I couple that with my desire to serve in public office. But and that's not to say that people can't run, absolutely run. But my thing would be, what have you been doing in your community? What have you been doing to make your community a better place? And just recently, I was nominated and received the Yellow Rose Award from the General Assembly, the women of the Senate and the House, and that's an award that they give out each year for women across Georgia that are making an impact in their communities, that they're servicing their communities, that they're impacting the lives of other people. And I joined legislators and from both the House and the Senate and other people from around the state for that breakfast, and it was an honor to have gotten that award. And I did a press release on it. I'll send it to you and share it with you. But um, you don't get those types of accolades or those types of awards or recognition um, just because you want to run for office. It's an acknowledgement that I have been the person in my community, that I have been working on other things, and I have been giving back to the betterment of the lives of other people. And I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
Well, and thank you for all you've done, and you shared quite a bit with us today about what your goals are for the PSC and how what you're looking forward to this year. I always like to wind these things up by giving the candidate like a 1 or 2 minute at the end to do your stump speech, I guess you could say. Why should the Democratic voters in the primary, why should they vote for you?
Yeah.
You know, what is your case to be made for that? So I'm going to let you wrap it up by giving that case right now. Go ahead.
Well, I am, as I said, someone who ran in 2022 and won the Democratic primary. But this year I'm running, and I'm not running just based on past success alone. I'm running because the stakes are too high. Utility decisions that directly affect the cost of living for families and the survival of small businesses are at stake. And if we don't do something now to put transparency into place, to put meaningful decisions into place, we're going to suffer the same consequences that we're currently suffering. And as a commissioner, I will ensure that every decision is made with openness and integrity. I will advocate for greater public access for information. I'll push for clearer communications around rate increases and regulations, and create more opportunities for Georgians to have their voices heard before decisions are finalized, not afterwards. So I'm asking everyone to join me and join my movement to bring the third vote to the Public Service Commission. Vote Sheila E. for PSC. Vote for your pocketbooks. Vote for your neighbors. Vote for seniors. Vote for veterans. Let's get this third vote so we can change the trajectory of what's been happening in our state and put people first versus utility companies and money. And that's my stump speech. So thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome. I think that's a good stump speech. I hope to hear you say it more and more as the year goes on. So, Sheila, thank you so much for your time. I hope
Thanks, Tom.
I hope the pollen does get better for you and all of us, because I feel
I
that too.
know.
Trust me. And hope the gas prices get better for all of us too in the weeks ahead.
Yeah,
But we will see about that. But I appreciate
yeah.
your time and thank you so much for talking with us today.
And remember, it's about everybody's pocketbook.
It
And
is.
if we can impact that in a positive way, I think we'll be doing a whole lot to, for everybody. So, and it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, independent, white, black, brown, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got a pocketbook. And every time you look in that pocketbook, you got to figure out what gets paid. And sometimes it's a struggle.
Right.
And we have to change that. So thanks, Tom, and thanks to your community. Appreciate it, your support and your advocacy and everything that you do. And go Sean Harris. Let's see if we can get this win. So,
I hope so. This election year, we haven't even reached April yet, and I'm already worn out with it. But I will.
oh,
I hope we'll see you around. We have a June barbecue coming up. I'll make sure the invite goes out to you, and we'll hope to see you there.
listen, I'll be there. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye
Take
bye.
care, man. Bye bye.